I never imagined that reaching the top would feel so painfully empty. As I stood alone in my penthouse office, the city lights glowing beneath me like a bed of scattered stars, the news reports blasted across every screen my cybersecurity company had just been acquired. Reporters called it the deal of the year. 99% of people would have celebrated. But all I could hear were my son David's last words echoing in my head like a curse I could never shake. "You're dead to me. Lisa was right about you all along." Those words had shattered me 3 years ago, on the very day that was supposed to be the happiest moment of his life, his wedding day. Instead of holding him proudly at the altar, I had stood in an empty church holding a manila envelope that could have saved him. Saved him from the lie he was marrying into. But Lisa had gotten to him first, twisting everything, poisoning him against me before he could even open the truth. The thick irony of my life hit me harder than any business deal ever could. On the same day, I finally signed the papers to sell my company, my life's work, for $89 million. My phone lit up with David's first message in 3 long. Silent years. Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe it's time we talked. I must have stared at the message for minutes until the letters blurred. Memories of raising him alone rushed back, late nights working after his father died, making sure he never went hungry, never felt the poverty I grew up in, never lacked opportunities. I had poured everything into giving him a future, only to lose him to a woman who saw him as nothing more than a target. Another message arrived before I could gather myself. Lisa and I are having an anniversary party next weekend. Small gathering, close family only. It would mean a lot if you came. Of course it would mean a lot. Especially now that my bank account had more zeros than they ever dreamed of. My assistant, Sarah, who had been by my side through every storm, watched the screen over my shoulder. "Are you going to tell him what we found?" she asked quietly. My hand drifted to the locked drawer in my desk, the one holding 3 years of surveillance. Reports, photos, bank trails. 3 years of truth. 3 years of betrayal. "Not yet," I said. "Not until I see them." The party was at their house, the same house I had helped them buy when everything still felt hopeful. Lisa opened the door with a smile so polished it nearly cracked her face. "Margaret," she said sweetly, "we're so blessed you could come." Blessed. What a word to use. Inside, the living room was crowded with her relatives, every single person who had stood by her lies years ago. Her mother, who defended her accusations. Her brother, who threatened to call the police on me that terrible day. Not one of them had ever apologized. David hugged me, stiff and awkward. "Mom, you look successful." "Money does that," I said softly, watching the sharp glimmer of greed spark in Lisa's eyes like a flame catching dry wood. The next 2 hours dragged like weights tied to my feet. Lisa floated from person to person, bragging loudly about her designer bags and expensive trips, slipping in comments about their tiny financial struggles, just loud enough for me to hear. David kept bringing up his startup, circling around the subject of funding, his voice almost hopeful. Then Lisa clinked her glass loudly, calling for everyone's attention. She placed her hand on her stomach in a dramatic gesture. "We have wonderful news," she announced. "We're expecting. David's going to be a daddy." The room exploded with cheers. I felt a cold sickness rise in me, because I knew what was in those medical records I'd kept hidden. I knew the truth she was trying so hard to bury. "And of course," Lisa added with her syrupy voice, eyes locked on mine, "with the startup struggling and medical bills ahead. Well, you know how hard it can be." She didn't even have to finish the sentence. The entire room was waiting for me to pull out my checkbook, but instead I opened my purse slowly. The silence became so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were listening. Every face turned toward me. "You're right, David," I said calmly. "Family is family." And that's exactly why I've been keeping myself prepared for 3 years. Lisa's smile faltered. I placed the first photo on the coffee table. Lisa and a man, kissing on a beach. The man was not David. "What's that?" David asked, confused. "This." I tapped the photo. "This is you last summer in the Cayman Islands with Michael Roberts. Your husband." Dead silence. "Your other husband," I clarified. "The man you married 6 years ago and never divorced." The same man you've been secretly sending money to. Including the $50,000 I gave you for the wedding. David stared at the photo, shaking. What? What is this? Keep going. Lisa's mother snapped. Show them all your fake evidence. You're just jealous David chose us over you. Jealous? I laughed sadly and pulled out the rest of the file. Here's Lisa emptying David's accounts the day after he cut me off. Here she is meeting Michael every month. Here is the offshore account they filled with his investor money. And here, I paused, watching Lisa's color drain. Here are her medical records. She's not pregnant. She has never been pregnant. Lisa lunged for the folder, but her brother grabbed her, his face pale. Lisa, tell me this isn't true. But Lisa said nothing. David sank into his chair, voice shaking. 3 years. You've known this for 3 years. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, I whispered. The day of your wedding. Lisa claimed the envelope held threats. She burned it before you opened it. Chaos erupted. Lisa's mother screamed. Her brother pulled out his phone, staring at the financial files I'd just forwarded him. David just sat there, staring at the ruins of his life, scattered across the table, but the worst truth was still waiting. I pulled out a final envelope. Heavier than the rest. Before opening it, I looked around the room. I didn't spend 3 years gathering evidence of Lisa's fraud. I spent 3 years tracing where it came from. David lifted his head slowly. The source? Yes, I said. Your wife didn't pick you by chance. You were chosen, profiled, targeted. Then I turned to Lisa's mother. Isn't that right? Patricia, or should I call you by your full name, Patricia Roberts? A collective gasp filled the room. She isn't just Lisa's mother, I continued. She's Michael's mother too. This wasn't a scam. This was a family operation. I spread the documents across the table: bank statements, police reports, marriage records from multiple states. 6 young entrepreneurs, all manipulated the same way. A pretty woman shows up. A fast romance. A picture-perfect wedding arranged by Patricia. While her other son drains the accounts in the background. Patricia stood up, trembling. You have no proof. Actually, I do. Because you got greedy. I pulled out the final paper. 3 days ago, you tried to hack into my company's financial servers. Unfortunately for you. Cybersecurity is what I do. And law enforcement has been watching ever since. Lisa's brother stepped toward the door. Don't bother Tom, or James, or whatever your real name is. The police are already outside. Right on cue, sirens wailed. David stood, legs trembling. All this, my whole life was a lie. Lisa's voice cracked for the first time. Not everything. I did care about you. You were different. Different enough to steal from him? I asked sharply. Different enough to laugh about him with Michael? I pressed play on my phone. Lisa's voice filled the room, mocking him, calling him easy, calling him naive. A picture frame shattered. David had thrown his wedding photo across the room. The startup, he whispered. The investor's money. Yes, I said quietly. It's already in accounts in the Commons. But there is good news. I handed him one last document. I replaced everything they stole from you. Every dollar. Plus interest. It's in a secure account under your name only. Lisa's fury twisted her face. You think this changes anything? We'll do it again. No, I said as police stepped inside. Because unlike your other victims, I didn't just get angry. I got evidence. All of it. And I shared it with every agency from here to the Caymans. Patricia was handcuffed. Tom was next. Lisa didn't fight. Didn't scream. She just stared at me with a strange mixture of rage and respect. You know your biggest mistake? I said softly. You thought cutting me out of David's life would keep you safe. But you only gave me nothing left to lose. And all the time in the world to take you down. As they led her away, she looked over her shoulder at David. For what it's worth. You really were my favorite, Mark. David sank onto the couch as the door closed behind them. Mom, I'm so sorry. All the things I said to you. I sat beside him, tucking his hand like I used to when he was small. You were in love. Love makes us blind sometimes. Not love, he corrected bitterly. Manipulation, God, I was so stupid. No, I said, squeezing his hand. You were kind, trusting. And they took advantage of that. But those are still good qualities to have. Just maybe with better security next time. A weak laugh escaped him. Security? Is that why you really built your company? To protect people like me? I thought about those long nights coding, building firewalls and tracking systems, all while watching Lisa's scheme unfold. Let's just say you gave me extra motivation. The police spent hours taking statements. By that time they were done, the sun was setting, casting long shadows through the house Lisa had once decorated so perfectly. I can't stay here, David said, looking around at the fake life he'd been living. Come home, I offered. Your old room's still there. He nodded, tears finally falling. Mom, how do I start over? I pulled him into a hug, feeling 3 years of distance melt away. The same way I did after your father died, one day at a time with people who really love you. As we left house, I looked back one last time. Lisa had thought money was power. She never understood that real power comes from love, the kind that waits, watches, and never gives up. But there was still more truth to reveal. Because in my final envelope, there was one more document. One that would show David just how deep this conspiracy went and why his father's death might not have been the accident we thought it was. Some family secrets I was learning cast very long shadows. 2 weeks after Lisa's arrest, I sat in my home office staring at the last piece of evidence I hadn't shown. David, the timing had to be right. He was still processing the destruction of his marriage. Sleeping in his childhood room, barely eating. My phone buzzed. A message from my private investigator. Michael Roberts started talking. You were right about 2018, the year David's father died in that accidental car crash. A soft knock at my door. David stood there looking younger in his old Yale sweatshirt. Mom, can we talk? I slipped the file into my drawer. Always. He sat down fidgeting with his wedding ring, which he still hadn't taken off. The detective called. They found all the money Lisa and her family stole, not just from me but from the others too. But he hesitated. They found something else. Something about Dad's accident? My heart stopped. What did they tell you? Nothing specific, just that they need to review the case. He looked at me closely. But you already knew that, didn't you? Slowly, I opened up the drawer and pulled out the file. I wasn't sure when to show you this. You've been through so much already. Mom, please. No more protecting me. I need to know everything. I spread out documents. Your father's brake lines weren't worn out naturally. They were tampered with. And the last person to service his car was Michael Roberts. David finished, his face going pale, Lisa's other husband. He owned the repair shop under a different name. The same shop Patricia recommended to your father. I showed him the proof, business records, insurance claims. A pattern spanning years. David's hands shook. Ash Reed. They killed him because Picasso was investigating financial irregularities at his bank, irregularities involving the Roberts family's accounts. I pulled out more documents. He was close to exposing their whole operation. So they eliminated the threat. And then they sent Lisa after me. David said hollowly. To make sure I never looked into it. But they didn't count on one thing, I said softly. They didn't know your father had already sent me everything you found the night before Heddied. David looked up sharply. Vous know all this time. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. No tunto Lisa led me to her family. That's why I built my cybersecurity company, not just to protect others, but to create the tools I needed to track them down. The company's sale. David whispered. The timing wasn't random. No, I knew once I went public with the evidence about your father, I'd need resources to protect us. The company sale gave US both security and credibility. David stood abruptly, pacing the room. All these years you were working on this while I treated you terribly. Believe it, their lies. Hey, I caught his arm. You were a victim too. We both were. But no, we can finish what your father started. Make them pay for everything they've done. How many other families? He asked. How many other victims? We found 12 so far. 3 deaths ruled as accidents. Millions stolen. I pulled up me laptop, but now we have Michael's consumptions. It's over. David picked up a photo of his father, the last one taken for the accident. He died trying to protect people from them, and I ended up married to one of them. Your father would understand. He'd be proud of how you're handling this now. A notification up on my laptop. Breaking news. The Roberts family indictments were going public. Years of fraud, manipulation, and now murder charges. What happens now? David asked, still holding his father's photo. Now we help other families recover what was stolen. We make sure the truth comes out, and then I smiled slightly. We start over together. David finally slipped off his wedding ring, placing it on my desk. Lisa sent me a letter from jail asking for forgiveness, claiming she really did fall in love with me. And what do y'all think? He straightened up, looking more like his father than ever. I think some people don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve justice. As the sun set over Thessaly, we sat together, planning our next steps. The Roberts family thought they could tear us apart, but they only made us stronger. They thought money was the most powerful weapon, but they never understood the force of a mother's love, a son's determination to honor his father's legacy. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us, but sometimes those wounds lead us back to the truth and to the people who truly love us. And as I watched David finale smile again, I knew that while the past 3 years had cost us dearly, what we'd gained was priceless. The truth, justice, and each other. Some say revenge is best served cold, but I've learned it's best served with love, patience, and the unshakable determination of a mother protecting her